Hi everyone, I'm John. Welcome back to my channel. I have another book review for you. Surprise, surprise. A few months ago, I was sent a book by the University of Chicago Press, which I'm growing to love more and more. And they sent me this. It is an uncorrected page proof, which may or may not be the same thing as a uncorrected galley. If you know more about the publishing industry, let me know if those are the same thing. But it's this. You can see uncorrected page proof on there. It is by Selena Wisnom, and it's the Library of Ancient Wisdom, Mesopotamia and the Making of the Modern World. And I showed this in a University of Chicago book haul video that I did a few months back. Well, fast forward a few months, and they were sending out promotional material, and they offered me this, which is the final copy, the version that's going to be hitting bookstores, hopefully, near you. It's this. It's the hardcover. And the nice thing about this, aside from it being a hardcover, is that it has that middle section with lots of art. Probably, I don't know, 20, 30. This is that famous clay prism. I think that it might be in the British Museum that talks about Ashurbanipal's military campaigns. Anyway, so I got this. I'll be keeping this. There is a possibility in a future video that I might be giving this away. This is the copy that I read. It's been read very, very gently. But if you are interested in an uncorrected proof that doesn't have the visual stuff, doesn't have any of the artwork in it, but does have clearly all the text, let me know, and I can possibly arrange that. I will make a separate video for it if I end up doing it at all. But I will hold up, for the purposes of this video, even though it's not the copy of the book that I read, I'll hold this up because it's just prettier, I think. But here we go, the book we're talking about. Imagining a fire in a personal library today makes us kind of recoil, I think, at the idea of having hundreds or even thousands of books burning in just a matter of minutes. But when the great library at Nineveh was besieged and destroyed by the Babylonians in 612 BC, its books weren't written on paper. Much like when a piece of wet pottery is put into a kiln, the fire permanently preserved the cuneiform on the tablets. And ironically, what would have destroyed a modern library was really a boon for the library of Ashurbanipal, and may have been exactly what saved those tablets for posterity. And one of the great first leaps forward into the field of Assyriology, the library of Ashurbanipal was unearthed for the first time in 2,500 years during the middle of the 19th century. The man who started the library was the last great king of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. His name, as I've said, was Ashurbanipal. He ruled for nearly 40 years, from 669 to 631 BC. He was a fierce military leader whose passion for learning led him to send scribes to the end of his empire to help him add to his collection in his library. And it's this library, the Royal Library of Ashurbanipal, in the city of Nineveh. And the knowledge of Assyrian culture that was discovered there that rests at the center of the story that's told in this book. So the book has 10 chapters, and it touches almost exclusively on ancient Assyria's, the Neo-Assyrian Empire's culture. It talks about mythology, theology, banking, literature, mathematics, astronomy, magic, lamentations. We'll get to lamentations in a second. Wisdom digs through the thousands of tablets that were in the library and sort of recreates the worldview of an elite Assyrian living in the time of Ashurbanipal. She relates the mythological story of cuneiform's invention when Gilgamesh's grandfather, supposedly, whose name was Imerkar, he had a story that was far too long for his messenger to remember, so he had to invent writing on the spot. Like the Egyptian hieroglyphics on the Rosetta Stone, cuneiform was not found in more than one language. It was first found in more than one language, sorry. It was found in both Akkadian and Sumerian, making its translation difficult because they didn't know which was which. Wisnom gives the example of encountering the word pain, P-A-I-N, in a text and not knowing whether it was the French word pain for bread or the English word pain. Wisnom's best achievement, I think, with this book is fully communicating how central the supernatural and the magical were to the Assyrian mind. Ritual wasn't just confined to the temple, but it suffused every single aspect of Assyrian life. There were medical incantations, formal prayers, chants to drive out demons, and there were many, many different kinds of demons. Chapter 5 itself is dedicated to the practice of extispacy, which is the field of divination devoted. Now, there are many fields of divination, by the way. This is the one entirely devoted to reading the entrails of slaughtered animals. Because of the detailed records kept at the library, we know not only about the various kinds of Assyrian magic, but also their practitioners. When the information is available, we even get glimpses into the relationships that court officials had with the kings, starting with Sargon II, who was Ashurbanipal's great-grandfather. Ashurbanipal's court exorcist, whose name was Adad Shuma Utzer, and I can't obviously pronounce these names in their original accents, so I'm giving it my good old English language try. He started his career under the previous king, Esarhaddon, who was Ashurbanipal's father. The British Library contains a letter written by Adad Shuma Utzer's son, Urad Gula, to the king complaining about how he had been ignored and was begging to regain his position at court. Esarhaddon suffered from a series of chronic ailments, ensuring that his chief physician, and we also learn about medicine in the book, his chief physician's name was Urad Nanaya, that he had little downtime and that he was kept busy. He seemed to suffer from these weird fever dreams and had a series of physical ailments that kept him sick often. The physician's work and the exorcist's work overlapped and complemented one another, and sometimes you couldn't really tell which was which. They both drew from the work of the medical scholar named Esagil Kinoply, whose diagnostic handbook, and that's actually what it's called, that's just not a description of it, predicated Hippocrates by nearly 6 centuries. That we still have texts that give us details into daily life is wonderful, but there's something that really puts into perspective everything about knowing the names and the daily concerns and the activities and the relationships about these people and what their world looked like and what ideas they took for granted and what they thought about the universe. The public and private display of grief, which was known as lamentation, was another art that was required of its practitioners. At Ashurbanipal's court, there was someone by the name of Urad Ea and his son Nabu Zero Edina, who both served as lamentation magicians or practitioners. Lamentations weren't said only in times of crisis, like the death of a loved one or the fall of a city. They were also said proactively for crises that were yet to happen, making this genre of literature one of the most popular of Ashurbanipal's library. The subtitle is slightly misleading, I think, maybe. Uh, the subtitle is Mesopotamia and the Making of the Modern World, which may be a bit of an overreach. And Wisdom goes out of her way to emphasize that many of the practices and beliefs that we may consider archaic are or weird really remain with us today. I say the subtitle is a bit of an overreach because while the discovery of this information is important and interesting and vital for learning about the Neo-Assyrian Empire, and it's also the way we discovered a number of really important texts, including Gilgamesh, by the way, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Uh, Making the modern world is kind of a sweeping claim. It certainly makes history more interesting because there's enough to keep hundreds of Assyriologists busy for many, many years. But just a small note on the title. The stuff she says about the how we sort of hold beliefs that we can't justify, much like we read stuff like this about the lamentations, the magic, how it overlapped with medicine, and we think our modern selves, full of our hubris that we have, wow, that's so weird. Why would they do that? What's the point of singing an incantation over a sick person? That doesn't help. But she points out the things that we do that are sort of parallel to it in our modern world. We worship and we attempt to please God, at least many of us do. We use economic models to forecast the future, even if we don't use entrails to do it. We still engage in displays of public sadness for the purpose of catharsis, like the practitioners of lamentations do. It's easy to look back on centuries-old cultures as benighted or ignorant, and certainly they didn't know many things that we do today. But until someone brings it to your attention that there are countless continuities that your culture shares with theirs, it is a humbling observation to read about them too. In a world where most publishers are interested in bringing out books about military campaigns, as far as Assyrian history goes, it usually tends to be about war, conquering, and all of that stuff. And you know what I think about military history? I've said it on this channel a few times. I will continue to say it when it comes up. Just tell me who won the war. Okay, I don't need to know about every single battle campaign. I don't need to know about the positioning of troops. Just tell me who won the war. And aside from the occasional mention of Ashurbanipal's military encounters with this or that other neighboring culture or civilization, this is not one of those histories. Like I said, this is cultural history. And it is a really, really good reminder that the cultural heritage left to us by Ashurbanipal's Great Library is really deserving of a book all of its own, and I hope it gets many, many more. And I would like to say one last thing. If anyone from the University of Chicago Press happens to be watching, thank you for the book and the kind people I corresponded with in getting it. I really appreciate the book. And if you're interested in a cultural sort of history of ideas of 7th century, a little bit of 8th, but 7th century Neo-Assyrian culture, fantastic place to start, I think. The Library of Ancient Wisdom, Mesopotamia and the Making of the Modern World by Selena Wisnom. I will see everyone very soon.